Welcome back to Bassi Legani, Tov Shin, Test Zion, 5716. Yesterday I said 5715, it was a mistake, I apologize. Anyway, yesterday we discussed the spiritual hamshacha, the bringing down, we're babysitting tonight. Yeah, you like this? So the spiritual hamshacha, how godliness is brought down through the different letters, specifically through the letters Kuf, Resh, and Shin. We said the letters Kuf and Resh come from the Sitra Bisha, the forces of evil, negativity, whereas Shin isn't, but the Kuf and the Resh made the word Sheker and dragged the Kuf and the Resh with it. So we actually are going to develop this idea. So to explain the Kuf and the Resh, which come from the forces of evil, now Ais Daled. So now we can understand the difference between Kuf and Resh and their spiritual counterparts. What are their spiritual counterparts? The Daled, Resh is actually a Daled. If you add a little notch or a Yud to the back of the Resh, you end up with the letter Daled. And if you take the letter Kuf, which as we said is from the forces of evil, and you cut off half of its leg, then you end up with a spiritual counterpart in Kedusha, in holiness, which is the letter Hey. So Daled and Resh are opposites, and Kuf and Hey are opposites. So, not only do they look similar, but the Friedrich Rebbe explains that they're actually what they represent, the letters Daled and Resh and Kuf and Hey, you can see something very significant in similarities in how, in what they represent. So, what does Daled and Resh represent? What do we learn from them? So they represent the concept of Dalus, poverty, downtroddenness. Dalus va'anius, as in the Friedrich Rebbe's words. And the letter Daled, of course, the word Dalus, being downtrodden, actually begins with the Daled. And where the Friedrich Rebbe goes on to bring two psukim from Mishlei, Proverbs, to explain how we know that the letter Resh also represents poverty. Excuse me. So the two psukim go like this. It says, Mechitas Dalim Resham. This is Proverbs chapter 10, verse 15. And what this means is that the poverty is the ruin of the impoverished. And the word for poverty here is Resham, their poverty. And so therefore we see that the letter Resh is associated with poverty. The other pasuk is also Mishlei, chapter 30, Perek Lamed, pasuk Ches, and it says, Resh va'oisher al titeni. Don't give me poverty or riches. Hatrifeni lechem chukai. Just give me a proper portion of bread. The word in there, Resh. I'm still babysitting. Shh. The word Resh in here, which is spelled Resh Aleph Shin, begins with the letter Resh, of course, and represents poverty. So now the Rebbe is explaining why would the Friedrich Rebbe bring up these two psukim specifically to show the difference between the Daled and the Resh, or to just point out that the Resh can be the concept of poverty. It's not just and so we explain that the poverty that is represented by the letter Resh is actually on a lower level. It's a more basic level of poverty than that which is represented by the letter Daled, and that's why it says Mechitas Dalim Resham. The Resham, the poverty, is the cause of the downfall of the poor. So the Resham, that level of poverty, is very, very low, and we see from here that Reshus, this level of poverty that begins with the letter Resh, is lower than Dalus. And same thing with the other pasuk we had, Resh va'oisher, poverty and riches and wealth. Poverty beginning with the Resh is the opposite of riches. It's beyond Dalus. It's way, 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 way down there. So the Friedrich Rebbe continues on the Maimon, and he says, even though Daled and Resh are similar in the way they look and in their explanation, because they both represent poverty, nonetheless, they are very, very, very different. And we're going to explain in the next ice how the poverty represented by the Daled and the poverty represented by the Resh are actually completely opposite. And one is godly and the other one is not.